this is my first AETC, and I must say I'm very impressed thus far. I think, first of all, the collaboration with Apple is great. We collaborate at ARDA, we collaborate with Apple as well, but the focus on technology. I think it's a good step in the direction of homemade solutions for homemade issues. But more importantly, as we look forward to how we're actually going to truly accomplish energy security, it starts with massive collaboration across the oil and gas value chain. And when you look at what's potentially possible with artificial intelligence and all that, driving innovation across the oil and gas value chain, AETC definitely is touching on all the right points.
What do you think they can do to sustain this conference?
Get projects. Start talking about projects where technology is being deployed and how it has revolutionized those sectors. For example, I was at the Congo Energy Investment Forum a couple of months ago in Brazzaville, and there was a company that talked about how, for the first time, I was on the IOC, they were able to drill a well unmanned. So when you look at that, what that means, that essentially means that you can reduce drilling times, compress drilling programs, thereby drilling more oil. When you start looking at what that means across Africa, rather than looking at it as a potential loss of jobs, it's more how can we start using technology to target the best opportunities, access them quicker, and then start to get more benefits from the crude oil. Simultaneously, with technology, you can now access across Africa where should the right downstream investments be made to take advantage of incremental oil production. So technology, I think, is fundamentally critical. So to your point, let's start to pinpoint projects that technology can really enhance.
So I'm bringing it back to you again. What are some of the energy technologies that we can adopt to promote our sector, the energy sector?
Technology, I would make it easier. I wouldn't even say what technologies, because that one I think you'd have to get a bit more specific. There's drilling technology, there's refining technology. You can go. I think the most important thing is to take a step back and ask yourself, what are our business plans? How are we planning to accomplish them? And have we equipped ourselves with, I think the Apple Secretary General talked about technology being critical and creating centers of excellence for technology to say, okay, this is where the hub for drilling is going to be in Africa. This is where the hub for reservoir engineering is going to be. This is the hub for refining. This is the hub for pipeline infrastructure and that kind of stuff. And then start trying to bring the actual technology manufacturer, so to speak, to emplace the technology in Africa. Work with our institutions to start building it into the curriculum so that we can get the young people involved, so that we can start to build technology programs for Africa in Africa.
What's your take on AETC championing energy transition?
Championing energy transition?
Yeah, in the wake of countries and asking us to keep drilling.
I mean, it has to. The whole energy transition thing is a play on technology. It's moving from fossil fuel technology to newer renewable technology, right? But I think it's looking at it as an opportunity rather than an issue or a problem. So if we're going to decarbonize our operations, we have to start looking at what technologies can we use. In the upstream, how are we going to drill for more oil, but do it with the lowest possible carbon footprint? How are we going to evacuate? What's the best technology for that? What kind of... so I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. You talk of solar panels, right? If you are building a pipeline, now a new pipeline, how do you build a pipeline with a much lower carbon footprint than before? If you are building a refinery, how do you come up with a technology that gives the lowest carbon footprint? Are you putting carbon capture and storage into the facility? What kind of hydrogen are you going to produce? Those kind of things. So I think there's an opportunity to revolutionize the discourse around maximizing crude oil production, maximizing beneficiation on the continent, but doing it with the most cost-effective technology available and domiciling it, more importantly, in Africa.
Speaking to some speakers, they are like, the program should go around the region than it being a Ghana-based program, because it started from here.
Yes.
And this is the second edition. They want it across the regions. What's your take on that?
So there are pros and cons of that. The beauty of technology is you can access it from anywhere. So it's not really about taking it to different places. It's about how do we ensure the content captures the issues from different places. Are we trying to showcase various regions across Africa? That's what I think the discourse should be. I don't, because we're having a conversation with one, I was having a conversation about this just before when you came to grab me, which is essentially, should we move it to Nigeria? Should we move it to South Africa? But the question, that's not the issue. At this point, this is the second edition. We need to build on the offering to build what technologies should we be looking at to drive and optimize efficiency in our oil and gas value chain. How are we getting the technology providers to come and talk about how they are revolutionizing upstream, midstream, downstream across Africa? As we get that, then we'll now see whether there's a natural place to move it to. But I find location is irrelevant because people can join by Zoom or anything anyway. I think it's more about the content. Are we ensuring that the content of the conference is Pan-African? That's where I think we should focus.
How do you envisage ATC?
How do I
envisage the future of ATC? How do you see it in the next 5 or 10 years?
So at the beginning of this conference, there was a very young boy that came out. That's what I envision as the future of ATC, and I'll explain why. At a lot of conferences, I ask a fundamental question. I ask people to raise their hand if they are going to be 40 years old or younger by 2030. Because if you calculate, if you are 40 by 2030, that means that by 2050 you'll be 60. So you have about 20 years to work. But if you are older than 40 by 2030, chances are you're not really going to do energy transition. So to your point of how do I see AETC evolving, it is getting more people like that young gentleman involved in our industry to support technical, commercial decisions and build the bench strength and human capital that we need to execute the business plans that we envision. That's what I see ATC can do.
Your takeaway from the conference?
So far, pretty good. Got a lot of reach. Again, I like the support from Apple. I love that we're talking financing, but we also are looking as broad at clean technology and things like that. We have a panel session I'm on tomorrow with Apple. We have CAPS. We have Amelia herself is on there, and we have a variety of other folks who are going to talk across the continent. How do we have inter-African collaboration? I think that's fundamental. Across countries, across regions, and across sectors. Then we can truly create a robust intra-African oil and gas market that will support and enable us to promote African energy security.
You brought it up, the inter-African trade. How do we do technology transfer? How do we build on technology transfer?
Well, I think, how do we create centers of excellence? How do we partner with our educational institutions across the continent? Fundamentally, how do I put it? If you're running a refinery in Nigeria, how do we ensure that the technology that we're transporting across Africa is the same as the refinery in maybe South Africa or Egypt and so on and so forth? So that way, you have the same issues and you are building what we call subject matter experts on that. They will now work with institutions in that area and the technology centers in the various regions to ensure that we have cutting-edge technology to deploy, but also, if you send one person to Europe to train, that same cost can train 10 to 20 people here. So you also be able to train more and more people across the continent, and that's how you transfer technology and you build the bench strength across.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.